Good morning and welcome to docket number 240104, PURA's annual review of the rate adjustment mechanisms of the United Illuminating Company. We are here this morning for an evidentiary hearing in this matter. So I will start by taking appearances. So I see Attorney Vaughn first, please.
Good morning, Chairman Gillette, Vice Chair Pekoski, Brendan Vaughn of Keegan Werlen on behalf of the United Illuminating Company. Also appearing, though not present, is Daniel Venora of Keegan Werlen. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. James Talbert-Slago on behalf of the Office of Consumer Counsel. With me today is Rory Apollonia, and we do have a late game day addition to our panel today. Claire Coleman, the Consumer Counsel, will be joining us, and she does have a few questions, even though she's not on the agenda, if that's okay.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to enter an appearance at this time?
Good morning, Chair. Obina Anuiji for Deep. I'm also joined by Josh Walters, who was not present.
Thank you. Thank you, Attorney Inoji. All right. Are there administrative matters before we adopt pre-filed materials?
None from the company.
Thank you. None from any other party. Very good. Then I'm going to begin by swearing in the witness panel. Attorney Vaughn, you have quite a number of witnesses listed. So let me ask you, would you like me to administer the oath to all of them, or how would you like to do this?
I think that makes sense, Chairman Gillette. I was planning to have you swear all the witnesses in and then have the witnesses adopt their testimony and discover responses, and then we go from there. But it might be more efficient to swear them all in now.
Okay. So for purposes of the court reporter, let's, are there any witnesses in the audience? Okay. All right. Lisa, do you have a preference about how I do this? Are you okay if I adopt them? Do those both. Okay. All right. If I could ask the witnesses in the audience to stand, please, just so I'm clear. And then all of the witnesses, I'd ask that you raise your right hand. I'll administer the oath. At the conclusion of the oath, if you could please say, I do. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under pains and penalties of perjury. Thank you. You can be seated. Thank you very much. Attorney Vaughn, if there are witnesses in the audience who need to adopt, I'd ask that they approach that microphone, and we're just clear about who they are. So I'll let you adopt pre-filed materials, please.
Absolutely. And maybe for brevity, we'll start with the witness members who are in the audience. So if they could each approach the microphone, I'd ask each of the panel members to please state your full names and positions for the record, beginning with the witnesses in the audience.
Joel Michael Koplick, Manager, Smart Grid Innovation Programs.
Megan Eileen Pomeroy-Slosky, Unit Manager and Projects.
Marissa Westbrook, Manager of Delivery of Programs and Products.
Brian Sullivan, Manager of Supplier Relations and Load Settlement.
Ted Novicki, Director, Regulatory Affairs.
Robert Whalen, Manager of Customer Projects and Programs.
Thank you.
Good morning, Dan Canavan, Vice President of Regulatory.
Michael Pertel, Director, Regulatory.
Jacob Hurwitz, Senior Director of Revenue Requirements.
Jack Jessup, Director of Accounting.
Mark Holka, Manager of Pricing.
John Stanley, Principal Analyst, Wholesale Power Contracts.
Christy Prescott, Director of Wholesale Power Contracts.
David Sullins, Lead Analyst.
James Clemente, Director, Transmission Analytics.
Lisa Rosso, Customer Service and Credit and Collections.
Sean Sullivan, Director, Smart Grid Innovation and Planning.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Mr. Stanley, Mr. Clementi, Mr. Whelan, Ms. Westbrook, Mr. Sullivan, Ms. Rosso, Ms. Pomeroy-Slosky, Ms. Prescott, and Mr. Sullivan. As part of your preparation for this docket, did you provide pre-filed written testimony and exhibits which were filed as part of the company's known and measurable filing on January 16th, 2024, and marked as exhibits A, F1 through F4, G, H, and J?
Yes.
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 Do you have any updates or changes to your pre-filed direct testimony and exhibits?
No.
I do not.
Do you adopt your pre-filed direct testimony as part of your sworn testimony in this case?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Kolka, as part of your preparation for this docket, did you provide pre-filed written testimony and exhibits which were filed by the company, which were filed as part of the company's proposed rates filing on February 16th, 2024, and marked as Exhibit A and Attachment 1, Exhibits C, F through I, and K through X, and Attachment 2?
Yes.
Do you have any updates or changes to your pre-filed direct testimony and exhibits?
No.
Do you adopt your pre-filed direct testimony as part of your sworn testimony in this case?
I do.
Mr. Kolka, Mr. Pertel, and Mr. Hurwitz, as part of your preparation for this docket, did you provide pre-filed written testimony and exhibits which were filed as part of the company's March 1 full RAM filing and marked as exhibits A, B, D, F, G, H, I, and J?
Yes.
Yes.
And do you have any updates or changes to your pre-filed direct testimony and exhibits?
No.
No.
Do you adopt your pre-filed direct testimony as part of your sworn testimony in this case?
Yes.
Yes.
And this is to the entire witness panel. Did each of you also sponsor responses to interrogatories submitted in this proceeding?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you have any changes to any of your responses to interrogatories?
No.
No.
Do you adopt your responses to interrogatories as part of your sworn testimony in this proceeding?
Yes.
Lastly, to Mr. Jessup, are you familiar with interrogatories submitted in this case sponsored by Benjamin Belanger, CAE 2, OCC 9, and OCC 10?
Yes, I am.
And for purposes of admission into the record, do you adopt these interrogatory responses?
I do.
Thank you. Chairman, the panel is available for cross-examination.
Thank you, Attorney Vaughn and panel. We're going to begin cross-examination this morning by authority staff, and I believe we have Mr. Norton up first. Thank you.
Morning. There we
There
go.
you go.
Jonathan Norton, PURA staff. Good morning. I'll be handling a handful of questions around the non-bypassable federally mandated congestion charge and the transmission adjustment clause, with a few other questions mixed in on other topics. But to start off on the NBFMCC, I'm going to start us off referring to the company's response to CAE 4 attachment 2. Give you a moment to get there if you need it.
I think we're here.
So looking at, we'll be taking a look at the LREC and ZREC proposed costs as well as the NRES costs, but starting on LREC, ZREC, does the number presented in this filing represent a net total cost expected by the company for the program as a whole? For 2024, I should probably add.
Yes, thank you for the question. The response is addressing, in terms of LREC, ZREC, is the additional projects that we expect to go in service that could potentially go in service in 2024 based on the project selected delivery term start date. And so it's not a net on top of those that are already in service, but it would be in addition to the expected payments that occurred in 2023.
Okay, so the number that was presented there, I think about 2.927 million I had is fully incremental above and beyond 2023 costs.
Correct.
Okay. And would that be similarly for the NRES program, which is within the same filing, that would be true as well?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on to the NBFMCC full-time equivalencies or FTEs. I'm going to refer to the January 16th known and measurable filing, Exhibit F2, which is the company's list of proposed additional FTEs for clean energy and grid modernization programs, specifically looking at page 1.
We're there, Mr. Norton.
Is it safe to say that the 1.828 million reported in this filing is the costs included within the company's actualized costs reported for 2023 for all the clean energy and grid mod programs?
Page 1 is specifically related to FTEs related to the clean energy and grid mod programs.
Right, so maybe said another way, is this 1.828 million the total FTE costs incurred in 2023 for those programs?
So you're referring to the category that says 2023 salary with the asterisk one, or the footnote 1, benefits of plus 45% salary?
Yeah,
Okay.
and then the clarifying footnote, Mr. Norton, is the midpoints of each of the positions was used here to protect for confidential information.
True. Okay. Just so I'm just grabbing the filing myself here. Just so I'm getting the information I'm looking for. So to clarify, that number that I referenced, the 1.8, then wouldn't necessarily be an exact representation of what the company incurred in 2023.
Correct.
Okay. Understood. Okay. For each of the newly hired positions in RRES and NRES that the company has listed, can the company comment on how the increase in personnel aligns with the allowable number of FTEs for said programs as it relates to prior authority decisions?
I'm sorry, Mr. Norton, which decisions for the programs?
Prior program, any of the prior program authority decisions for RRES or NRES that would have spoke to the allowable FTEs that the company's proposing?
I'm going to ask my colleague, Ms. Westbrook, to respond to that, Mr. Norton.
Okay, yeah, and additionally, the rate case would also be applicable.
Just getting the right witness on the up at the bench. Thanks.
Yes, the new incremental labor that was described in the known and measurable for RRES/NRES, those would not have been included in the rate case proceedings. And in terms of the RRES docket proceedings and allowable FTEs there have, to my knowledge, have not been set allowable FTEs. And as a need has been identified to support work for the programs, we have been asked to recover them through the NBFMCC line of the rate recovery mechanism, and such have brought them forth in the known and measurable charges for next year. Known and measurable projections for next year.
Okay, thank you. Is, within the same filing, is the percentage of time allocated for the new personnel being hired in 2024 or expected to be hired? Is it adjusted downward for the fact that they are expected to be hired and on the payroll for a partial portion of 2024?
Based on this filing, I believe we were considering 100% for purposes of the number that was calculated. So we did not take into consideration an anticipated higher date that would prorate that for those numbers. There are two line items, one new FTE that's anticipated at 50%, and that I believe was a prorated line item.
Okay, thank you. Is, or how confident is a company that all four would be, all four positions, new positions being presented would be filled in the Q2 2024 timeframe as displayed in the filing?
I believe that Q2 timeframe was our initial projection, although subject to check, I guess to be determined if it's based on the RAM decision. So I guess we'll have to, we have not progressed with the hiring of those, given the RAM proceeding that is ongoing at this point.
Thank you. I'm going to be switching over to the transmission adjustment clause or TAC. And I'm going to be just have initially question regarding the LNS and Schedule 12C costs. And I'm going to refer to CAE 8 to begin. And the company indicated in their response to CAE 8 that they do not expect a known and measurable change in 2024 for the LNS and Schedule 12C expenses. Is that the case because the approved rate changes are expected to have an immaterial impact in 2024?
That's correct.
Is the company able to provide for the record what the expected cost increases or decreases will be for those, for the LNS and Schedule 12C with the approved rates in effect for 2024?
We can do that.
Okay.
I don't have it available now.
Okay.
Is that something that can be read in, or is the company time to locate that?
Yeah, I think I could read it in later today.
Okay, so I will mark that as a read in A, please. Oh, shoot. Mr. Norton, can you just restate that for me, please?
Yes, so the question is on the TAC, LNS, and Schedule 12C expenses. The company did not submit a known and measurable change on these, and just wanting to know the overall increase, decrease to those components of the TAC.
Thank you.
Expected in 2024.
Okay, thank you. We'll try that after lunch break.
Thank you. Moving on to the TAC 22-month amortization approved by the authority in reference to CAE 19, which the company provided a breakdown of that previously approved 22-month amortization of the TAC. Based on the company's response to interrogatory CAE 19, Is it true that the company recognized 7.877 million of authority approved 22-month amortization plus carrying charges in the first 6 months of 2023? Or I'm sorry, in the final 6 months of 2023?
Yes, that's.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Thank you. Are those amortization costs reflected in the actual 2023 TAC expenses reported within the March 1st filing, which amount to 146.237 million?
No.
Okay, thank you. My next question will be in regard to CAE 15 Attachment 1, specifically on various rate proposals that were requested by the authority, which were requested for rates in effect July 1st through April 30th of 2025 and July 1st through June 30th of 2025. My first question is on the former, specifically attachment 1 of CAE 15.
Yes, I'm there.
My question is, if the rates in attachment 1 were to be implemented on July 1st, 2024, is it true that the average rate increase across all RAM components would be approximately an average of 4.35 cents per kilowatt increase?
Could you repeat that percentage, please?
Sure, it's, is it true that the average rate increase being proposed in attachment 1 for all RAM components would be approximately an average of 4.35 cents per kilowatt hour of an increase?
That's correct.
Thank you. And then attachment 2 of the same CAE 15 filing, I'm going to essentially ask the same question, but with a different number here. So when you're there.
It's going to be 3.67 cents per kWh.
Great, thank you. And just for my last question here, I'm going to reference Exhibit A of the March 1, 2024 filing, specifically page 5. The company states in that section of the testimony that the weighted average cost of capital was reflected in the company's March 1 exhibits. Upon review of the exhibits, it looks like the company utilized a rate of 8.5%. Can the company confirm whether it is utilizing their weighted average cost of capital or prime rate for the record?
Mr. Norton, to clarify, are you referring to line 19?
Yes.
Where it's a reference to order number 5 and the WAC is part of the quote? Is that?
Let me confirm that for you. It was line 19 I was looking at. I know that. Give me one moment. I believe it's page 6, the first 2 lines where the company states this is reflected in the company's exhibits. Or sorry, this is reflected in the company's exhibits where applicable. Essentially confirming that order 5 was applied, which is indicating that the WAC was used, correct?
Yeah, to clarify that was calling out the quote from order 5, which has then been superseded by the fact that the prime rate should be applied.
Okay.
So that sentence, this is reflected where applicable. It apparently is no longer applicable because the prime rate of roughly 8.5% was used.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. That is all that I have.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Norton. Ms. McDonald, please.
Morning panel, Karima with PURA staff. My questions will only be about SBC. So I think Mr. Kolka, correct? You provided testimonies.
I did.
All right. Can we start with your response to CAE 20, please? Can the company state where it received the data used to enroll customers in LiDAR from December to date?
So we'll just shuffle the witnesses a little bit. Ms. McDonald, sorry.
Take your time. Can you repeat the question? Can the company state where it received the data used to enroll customers into LiDAR from December to date?
From DSS and CA. Oh, sorry. From our DSS files as well as the CA files, as well as customers applying directly.
Okay, thank you. For the responses to CAE 21 and 31, at the time of the known and measurable filing, the company asserts that it provided the best estimate for the number of enrollments and estimated costs. Could you clarify why the company opted not to utilize the numbers from the Experian data or chose not to include a specific amount in its filing?
I think when we made the known and measurable filing, we used the data that we had right there. The Experian data showed a much higher number. That was from 17/12/03 RE11. That showed a number that was in the 70,000s. And we just didn't see those applications coming in. And the Experian data is just an estimate. It's a statistical estimate. So it is not guaranteed to be accurate. It's just an estimate. So that, where we put that into 171203 RE11, we didn't think that that rose to the level of known and measurable. We knew what was known and measurable at the time when we put that, when we made the filing. We knew those numbers had enrolled or were pending. But we didn't think that the Experian data rose to the level of what would qualify for a known and measurable adjustment.
All right, thank you, Mr. Colca. Can you confirm that the customer enrollment numbers that were provided in each tier as of February 26th, those are actual numbers then?
Lisa, you have to
sorry.
answer verbally. Thank you.
Yes, those are.
All right, thank you. Now that we're here in March, has the company modified its assumptions or the calculations based on actual figures for the SBC revenue requirement?
I think I answered an interrogatory on what the number was as of February 26th, but I don't recall whether we made an estimate. We have not put any new numbers into the case here. So what went into the proposed rate calculation on February 16th, that was from the known and measurable filing. We've made no proposal to change that thus far.
And why is that, Mr. Colca? What factors are influencing that decision to maintain those original assumptions?
We didn't know we could. I mean, there's, on the March 1st, we didn't want to have any changes from the February 16th filing. So if there's any changes that need to be made, we'd like to make those all at once. So entering a new number, which wouldn't change too much because I think we were on the January 15th, that was most of them. There wasn't a huge change between the known and measurable filing and the numbers that we had on February 26th. So we made the decision not to have a March 1st rate calculation that differed. So we wanted to get all the changes so that we wouldn't be making these frequent rate calculations.
All right, off the top of your head, could you give me an idea of what the change would have been had the numbers reflected the actual numbers from January through February?
Is that something we could take as like a late file or?
We could do a late file or. That's right, but we just didn't get those into the rate calculation. So I'd have to do, we could do it as a late file or I don't know if I'd have a chance to read it in today later on.
Ms. McDonald, yeah, just to clarify Mr. Kolka's comments, we made the decision that anything that we filed in the proposed rates filing, we had to vet what ultimately would be the page 3 of all the exhibits in the full RAM filing. Last year, we had made a change from February 15th to March 1st, and it did cause a little bit of angst throughout the course of the hearing. We sought to avoid that at all costs, but that meant we needed to essentially take off 15 days of our prep for the March 1st hearing because we need to make sure our page 3 exhibit. So since the schedule was compressed, the other point with respect to tier 1 and tier 2, there's so much uncertainty as to what the ultimate asymptote or ceiling will be of the number of customers that could potentially qualify for us to do an initial estimate based on 1 month of data. We had December's data. And now if we do an update, that should also have an asterisk because that could change drastically in 2 months. Yeah, it's an evolving process because there's a lot of uncertainty. But we'd be happy to update with the latest data as a late file.
The response that may not be necessary. I'm just trying to understand the methodology used in the known and measurable filing is based off assumptions from Eversource's numbers coming from DSS. And the company, right? Let's confirm that. That is true, but
Ms. Rosso, you have to answer.
That known and measurable that we filed in January, was based on Eversource's numbers, because we didn't have ours as of yet for the DSS file. But now in February, that is what we currently have enrolled.
Okay. And based on the discussion just now, was it a material change based on the assumptions using Eversource's numbers from December to where we are now? Without having to do the calculations and providing that, was it a material change? In the sense that, was it significant compared to what we have?
The total estimated count of customers was similar. The material difference is more customers fell into the tier 2 bucket as opposed to the tier 1 bucket from our original assumptions.
And is that the assumptions moving forward for the company, that more customers will fall into the tier 2 bucket versus tier 1?
It is the way it's trending, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. Let's go to CAE 24 response, please. Why is the company waiting for a response from Eversource's request for a technical meeting to fully implement its data sharing with DSS?
We got, again, because the numbers from the DSS file, there's a significant number of customers that have never applied for any kind of hardship, and it's going to create an additional 11,000 customers for us. Not as big as additional one as Eversource, but still an additional amount of customers that have never applied for hardship ever before.
And so with the hopes, the company was hoping to participate in the technical meeting to share that information?
Correct.
Will this have any impact on the overall timeline or strategy for the data sharing with DSS?
No.
Okay. CAE 29, please. Could you clarify what each of the expenses identified in this attachment represent, and whether each of these costs is a one-time or recurring cost?
These were one-time costs for implementing the LIDR.
Is it possible for the company to provide a forecast of any of the recurring costs in its known and measurable filing for LiDAR?
Well, there is, unless we have to change things, there won't be any additional costs.
For the figure in that attachment, for the one-time costs, as you refer to, are they included in the 1.390 million for the expenses for LiDAR in December?
No, though that is actual expense for the low-income discount rate to customers. This is the cost of implementing the low-income discount rate.
Okay. CAE 33.
Okay.
Mr. Colca, can you identify where in the filing this 1.932 million is accounted for as recovered as of December 31st for the low income discount credit?
Exhibit H page 3 of 5.
Is this in the March?
That, yes, the detail is in the March filing.
Okay. Thank you for that. Will the company treat the remaining balance to be recovered up to April 30th the same?
Up till April 30th,
Of
2024.
24? Yes.
That will be in next year's.
And we can expect that it will be accounted for the same way?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, the LIDR, not the LIDC.
And my final question, can you clarify whether the company received any funds from Unite CT last year, please?
No. No, we did not.
All right. Thank you.
Ms. McDonald,
Yes.
I have that comparison, we were talking about by the numbers, compared to what we filed.
Yes.
And you can make the comparison by looking at, our response to CAE 21. That's the response I was, trying to get to. So as of February 26, 2024, we had 14,193 in tier 1 and 23,606 on tier 2. And that was a total of
2.522?
yes, 37799. And so if you compare what we did to the known and measurable filing, we put a range in there. It definitely is that our projection was higher for tier 1 and lower for tier 2. So to the extent that there's a difference in the discount there, then there'll be a difference in the cost. It'll be higher than what we put in the known and measurable based on the February 2026 amounts. So I can do that calculation as a late file, or we can do it some other way. I wouldn't think I could get it all done today and make sure I was comfortable with the answer.
Would I be able to get it by Wednesday, Mr. Kolka?
By Wednesday?
Yeah.
Yes, we'll do that.
So
That's a supplement.
Yeah, we can,
Should-
we can supplement CAE 21 with the file from Mr. Kolka. Does that
yes,
work?
please. So, so we're clear, supplement CAE 21 to adjust your SBC revenue requirement by adjusting the known and measurable proposal for LiDAR
As of February 26th.
as of February.
Yeah.
May I push it to say to date? At least the first week of March is numbered.
Or when can you get it?
Just a moment.
Yeah. Yeah, this is what I was thinking of.
How about as of this recent Friday,
Um,
Friday the 8th?
I'll be happy with that. But Mr. Kolka, one clarification here. You said CAE 21. What I'm looking for is CAE 20.
20, okay. So I'll supplement CAE 20.
Yeah, because that shows me the costs so far
Sure.
to
Okay.
February 26th.
All right, then that's what we'll supplement.
And you're adjusting the SBC revenue requirement by adjusting the LiDAR assumption.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Mr. White?
Thank you.
I have questions on the RDM and NBFMCC IES program. For CAE 4, answer 2, the company is requesting $4.7 million of category 2 costs for the IES program via the NBFMCC. And per your January 16th known and measurable filing, the company is requesting $240,000 of category 1 costs for the IES program via the NBFMCC. Considering that the IES program is intended as a fail-fast cost recovery program, are these costs known and measurable?
Yes, they are. Oh, Sean Sullivan. The costs for the category 1 are program administration costs to run the program, so they are consistent year over year for all the cycles. Right now, we just launched cycle 2. The category 2 costs are programmatic expenses to run each pilot. They are pre-approved milestones from the SFAs, the filing agreements from each of the vendors that were pre-approved by PURA to be milestones achieved in 2024. So they won't fail until the pilots are evaluated in phase 4, which it won't be until 2025. So the way the program runs is phase 3 is implementation, which occurs through 2024, which is now, and they are all evaluated in 2024 for if they've achieved their milestones of their project milestones.
So there's interim reporting involved, right?
It's quarterly reporting, yeah, on milestones.
What I'm wondering is it possible, just to be blunt about it, could one of these programs, not that I want it at all, but could one of these programs crater?
So since we're in cycle 1, there's a possibility of that, but the implementation of that or how that would actually occur, meaning a milestone would be either determined to fail, has not been determined by the IES program administration. So there's a potential, yes.
Okay.
But right now in cycle 1, we haven't seen that.
Okay.
We haven't gone through that. And we haven't gone through a milestone delivery yet.
All right. So that is category 2 costs. And with regard to the category 1 costs, it's $240,000 for a consultant.
It's $240,000 for a consultative project manager.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is that UI staff?
It's a contracted project manager.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so are those costs locked in?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you on that.
Sure.
Can you point me to the section of the 2208-07 interim decision or the 171203 REO5 decision, final decision, that squares with this request the way you're talking about it, the way you're explaining it?
I'm sorry, is that like a legal interpretation of the order? Is that what you're looking for?
So let me see. So with regard to category 2 requests, I'm trying to understand how, if a project could crater, how can we say it's known and measurable? So is it a legal request or an accounting request? I'm not really sure, but that's really what I'm getting at.
Attorney Vaughn, you have
mean, I
Shifting.
have the REO 5, some of the language in front of me. I don't have REO 5 in front of me, but it says the Category 2 costs, which are an even less predictable expenditures related to specific project deployment. All costs incurred by the EDCs as a result of their participation in the program will be subject to a prudence review and the appropriate revenue adjustment mechanism proceedings or a EDC's distribution rate case. Only these costs are applicable to the IES program. To be reasonable and prudent to the authority may be recovered by the EDCs. And so the milestones for the Category 2 costs that were approved by PURA for each final agreement from the vendors, for them to submit an invoice, it has to be the program administrator, the PURA selected program administrator has to approve those milestone costs before the invoices can actually be sent to the EDCs. So deemed prudent as invoiced to us. Once they're deemed prudent, we will have to pay these vendors, the 5 pilots. Yeah. Well, it's a PURA selected program administrator. Okay, well,
Thank you. Regard to RDM, I want to understand how to calculate UI's for the refund filing exhibit A. Revenue is $1,008,000. For the narrative in the 3-1 filing G, the company explains how to calculate the number. Fortunately, I haven't been able to work. That's asking you to explain how to
Mr. White, had you reviewed the company's response to CAE 34 Part B as you were attempting to ascertain that?
You did not.
We tried. This does involve the comparison of, or the calculation involving 3 different allowed revenue targets, because in addition to the company's base distribution rate case, docket number 220808, we also had a 22-month amortization, including in the first 8 months of the year. So if that's part of this. And so if CAE 34 Part B does not explain it to your satisfaction, we'd be happy to take another try via late file. But it's a math-based thing that involves 3 different numbers, so it's kind of complicated to just say out loud.
Oh, no, I totally understand that. Yeah, what I was hoping was just an Excel spreadsheet. That sounds like that's probably, or it's just text, that's fine.
And if that is unclear, we understand this is complicated and we can try to put together something clearer for you via late file.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. White. Attorney Riley.
Thank you, Chairman. Jim Riley, staff attorney for the authority. In Mr. White's line of questioning, he referenced $240,000 in consultant program costs for a contract manager. And I believe the phrase used was locked in. Could you please clarify what steps the company has taken to either like what steps has it taken to secure that position?
We have a framework agreement with a staffing organization that provides project managers that we've interviewed them and brought one on to run the pilots for the implementation.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, Ms. Cohen.
There we go. Thank you. Good morning to the panel. Stephanie Cohen, Authority staff. I just have two hopefully quick areas of follow-up. If we could go back to the discussion about the known and measurable filing, it's Exhibit F2, which is on the NBFMCC. We're having conversation about FTE additions. So I think this is a relatively quick question. Essentially, just there was some conversation about the pending positions open. I believe there was either 2 or 4 of them for 2024. Could the company just clarify whether if that revenue requirement associated with those positions is approved and those positions are not filled, would that funding just roll over into the NBFMCC, that line item for future position, or can you just tell me how that would work if you don't end up filling those positions?
Thank you for the question. We were anticipating hire of those positions based on the final decision or based on the decision in the RAM hearing. And I guess we would have to defer on, if those were not approved as part of the RAM hearing, how that incremental additional work would be supported.
Yeah, I would also add to Ms. Westbrook's response that those positions have not yet been filled. And so I think your earlier conversation was that we estimated at 100% salary. Again, that is an estimate in the known and measurable. We haven't hired those positions, so we don't know their final salary, in fact. So I don't think that we would anticipate the rollover. I think that would be considered a variance to the estimate, to actuals, depending on what we finally approve and hire into the organization. And so the actuals would be recovered in the 2024 filing next year.
Thank you. Is that if the known and measurable associated with that line item is not included? Because if it is included, wouldn't it be reflected in current or the next rate adjustment?
Yes, what I meant was that, we factor that into the rates for the 2024 rates. If they were not filled, we would anticipate that the actual cost for 2024 was different than was calculated in the rate. Therefore, that would be a lower amount that we would seek recovery for when we were to recover the actual cost for 2024 and next year's rent.
Right. Understood. Thank you for that clarification. Appreciate it. Okay. The next question I have is, I think it's going back to CAE 20, and just for my own benefit, really, we were having conversation about the SBC and the low income discount rate. Can you clarify whether the company is operating currently for the number of customers in tier 1 and tier 2? Have those all been kind of opt-in essentially, or has there been a degree of opt-out or a reflection of customers added as a reflection of additional information provided by DSS, for example? I'm just trying to understand where we're at the current moment.
Well, it's DSS, it's the CAAs, as well as customers applying directly.
Okay, so it's kind of all of the above.
Correct.
So the numbers reflected then in CAE 20, and let me just pull it back up here. Oh, it might be 21. The actual enrollment numbers. Okay, so that's CAE 21. Those reflect, the response from CAE 21 reflects opt-in as well as DSS opt-out. Basically like the total purview of potential customers that have been identified to date are reflected in the numbers in CAE 2020.
26.
Up to February 2024. Okay, thank you. I think that's all I have, Chairman.
Thank you. I think that's it from staff.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Then we will transition to the Office of Consumer Counsel, please.
Chairman, well, the OCC gets settled. In the event that there is not a lunch break, we can assess, I can assess with Mr. Clementi what to do about the read-in, if is that okay with you?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we don't have a traditional late file hearing scheduled, but I'm sure we can
sure we
find
can find-
something
yeah.
to supplement. Okay, thank you.
Good morning. I'm Rory Apollonia from the Office of Consumer Counsel. I'm an accounts examiner. So I have a few questions regarding the company's calculations related to total labor costs referred to in OCC interrogatory 14 and UI's response to that interrogatory and exhibit F2 of the known and measurable filing. So I believe I'm going to need Ms. Westbrook. All right, so Ms. Westbrook, yeah. Correct. Thank you.
Please. Okay, I am there.
All right, great. So you stated that 635,573 is accurately represented in Exhibit F2 of the known and measurable filing. Is that correct?
That is correct for the incremental positions, sorry. That is correct for the incremental positions specifically associated with the RES, Residential Renewable Energy Solutions Program.
Okay, thank you. What cell reference contains the 635,573 number?
I can answer that.
Yeah, thank you.
So, and just doing the quick sum product, it looks to be in Exhibit F2, page 1 of 2, Excel rows 25 through 28, and it's column G times column F. If I do a sum product of those, I'm coming up actually with 638, 860. There's a difference of $6,713.
Okay. Can you explain why that difference is there? Would you just like to update your spreadsheet? And then bring it in later?
We'll have to take a look at this and get back. I believe the number in the response to the OCC interrogatory is correct, but subject to check, and we will confirm.
All right, great. So I know PURA staff covered this, but I just want to go through it for clarity. So referring to OCC 14 attachment 1 interrogatory response, the notes section of the spreadsheet, row 32, states, quote, anticipating higher in Q2 2024, end quote. The 4 roles within the number 3 footnote, has it been hired by the company?
Thank you. No, they have not yet been hired.
Okay. And I think you were talking with Mr. Norton about that. So these 4 roles, the costs related to them, that would come through in the next year's filing?
Yes, as Ms. Prescott had stated, any actual labor costs incurred by those positions dependent upon their actual hire date would roll into next year's RAM calculations and filings.
Okay.
Mr. Apollonia, I could jump back to your prior question. I do see, looking at OCC 14 attachment 1, that the 635,000 number is the sum of the incremental increase of all of the NRES on res programs, including existing. When I did the calculation of the sum product, I was just calculating the new incremental, the 4 new ones. But we will confirm that today. But just looking at those exhibits, that's the difference between those 2 numbers. Is one is all the programs, and there's an incremental, assuming inflation adjusted increases.
Okay, thank you. So still referring to OCC 14 attachment 1 interrogatory response, footnote 2 states that the 2024 salary includes an estimated 3% increase over the 2023 salary. Is that accurate?
Yes, for this calculation purpose, we assumed a 3% increase in 2024 salaries that are above the 2023 salary levels.
And where is this 3% that you're assuming coming from?
Yeah, that was a general assumed across the board increase.
Okay. And if, when these roles, let's say they get hired in 2025, would another 3% go with the 3% for this year?
That would be our assumption on existing salaries would be increased by an average of 3%.
Okay, thank you. So can you explain why the company has two regulatory project managers working on the project 50% of the time instead of one regulatory project manager working on the project 100% of the time?
I can speak to that, yes. The initial regulatory project manager that was hired in 2023 splits their time currently between RES, SCEF, and electric vehicles and other work. So only roughly 25% of that individual is charging time to RES and SCEF at this point in time. That individual sits in a particular business area where those two programs are run. The additional incremental FTE regulatory project manager that we have included in the known and measurable is anticipated to be in a different business area and specifically to support regulatory obligations that are more technical in nature from the distributed generation side. And so there is a heavy regulatory load that supports, I should say, in support of the RES and NRES program. And that individual would be in that business area. And according to the known and measurable, approximately 50% of that individual's time would be in support of RES and NRES regulatory activities.
Okay, thank you for that. So moving forward, referring to OCC 8 response regarding terminated power purchase agreements. All right, how many remaining projects are in development?
So your specific question is, out of all of the power purchase agreements that have been entered into by the company through procurement activities selected through DEEP, how many are not yet in service but are still effective?
Yeah, I'll go with that.
That was not a subject to an interrogatory response, and I know we have that information and I can get that for you. Would you like an exact number or approximation?
I'll go with approximate.
I would say we have about 10 subject to check, certainly.
Okay, thank you. So moving forward, referring to OCC 9 response regarding the balance in the inactive clearing account, the company states that the inactivity was due to attrition. Is that correct?
Yes, that was part of the answer, yes.
Is that like the full answer? Or is that the reason why the error occurred?
Well, it was a time in December of 2020 when we were transitioning to the SAP, the Avangrid instance of SAP. And once you go to the Avangrid instance, some of the procedures and processes changed. This was an example. In 2021, we no longer use clearing accounts. So as we were transitioning, focusing on getting 2021 on the new process, best practices at the other Avangrid companies, this was overlooked at the year-end close in that transition period. So it was a combination of retirements of people, people retiring, I shouldn't say retirements of people retiring, and the transition to the Avangrid SAP instance.
Okay. So is the vacancy rate in the accounting department higher than the company-wide vacancy rate?
I don't have that offhand, and it's significantly more stable as we transitioned and again implemented some best practices across the companies.
Okay. So I'm gonna move on. We're gonna go turn to UI's rate adjustment mechanisms narrative and related exhibits. So referring to Exhibit B of UI's rate adjustment mechanism narrative filed on March 1st at page 8 in the first paragraph.
Mr. Apollonia, is that page 8 of the PDF or page 8 of the actual narrative, like numbered page 8 of the text? So the paragraph that starts the 448,000.
Yeah, it's that. Are you guys good to go? Okay.
We're there. Thank you.
I'm ready.
All right, great. Is it correct that the authority in docket number 23-01-04 disallowed 448,000 in incentive compensation related to FERC accounts for O&M, customer, and A and G? Can you answer that?
Yeah, I don't believe it was disallowed. We hadn't provided enough information on the record. So we're doing that now in this narrative.
Okay. So what you're putting into this docket is different information to support your data. Is that correct?
More information.
More information. All right. So let's move on to Exhibit G, TAC number 240104, tab Exhibit G, page 3, row number 29, which is the Excel row 33.
There.
Ready?
All right, good. Why is the company utilizing a monthly carrying rate of 8.50% for every month during 2023?
.5% reflects the prime rate at the time our filing was made, and our understanding of the authority's orders that we are to reflect the prime rate at the time the filing was made.
Okay. Am I correct to state that the prime rate as of the start of January 1, 2023 was 7.5%?
don't know that we have that at our fingertips.
Right, okay. So Chair, I would like to request a late file. It's gonna be just to bring into the record UI's docket number 230104, motion 10, 2023, 10-30 UI attachment 1, exhibits for the TAC rates effective November 1, 2023. 2023-01-04, tab Exhibit G, TAC carrying charge, page 2 of 2.
All set?
Yeah, I'm sorry about it.
No,
It's
no.
very long.
It sounds like that is a filing made by the company in another proceeding, in the prior RAM proceeding. So I don't know if we need a late file exhibit to bring that in. It's something that you could take notice of. Is there a question about it that you'd like to
All right,
discuss? Maybe we could,
Yeah, we
do it
will.
that way without a late file. Yeah.
Okay, we just converse right here. We just want that into the record, or converse into the record. So essentially, we have it up on the screen right now.
Okay, Attorney Talbert's legal, is the OCC moving that PURA admit into the evidentiary record the response to the motion in a previous docket and a certain exhibit? Is that a motion that
Yes,
OCC is
that-
making?
Should be.
Yes, that would be the motion, just to adopt something in the prior RAM from last year.
Okay, is the company objecting, or would you like to see that motion in writing?
I guess we'd wonder why, if we want to talk, maybe we talk, if the company can talk about, answer any questions that you have, and maybe we can see if we need to take that step. But I don't have any objection right now.
Well, we can see where the questioning leads and see if it's necessary to bring it in as a formal part of the record.
Okay, so let's I'll leave the motion on the table. I'm not hearing a formal objection, but let's revisit at the conclusion of the questioning. And if the motion stands with no formal objection, I am gonna need just you to read me back one more time. But let's proceed with the line of questioning for now, please.
Okay. All right, we're on. Great. So right before I asked you, am I correct to state that the prime rate as of the start of January 1, 2023 was 7.5%? And according to UI's own exhibit right here, this side of the screen, it was at the start of 2023, and then the prime rate went up over time.
Are those images on the Excel that are beneath Excel numbered rows, like line 14? Are those from the company's filing, or is that?
Correct. I
Okay,
did not
so
modify it in any way.
Excellent.
Okay, and the image on the screen is the snippet that you were referring to from the prior case, is that, or this is the?
Yeah, that's correct. I'm referring to the Wall Street Journal. Well, actually, the historical prime rate, which is, this side of the screen.
I'm sorry, let me rephrase. What the OCC is depicting on the screen are the unadulterated snippets from the prior docket that we were just asking for. Okay, so let's do this. Can we file this as, and I'll allow you to refer to it as documentary evidence for, and if you can file it as correspondence in 240104. With the references intact, and that will clear up everything that we were just talking about.
Okay, so we'll just label
Yes, sorry, we're having trouble with the microphones today. They keep turning on and off all over the place. But I heard you. So yes, if you can file it as correspondence labeled OCC Exhibit 1, for March 11th hearing. And, I think that cleans up everything that we have on the table here. Okay,
Yep, sounds
All right.
good.
Thank you.
It's okay.
All right, great. I feel like a singer. So, yeah, we're gonna move on. Let's go to Exhibit G, TAC number 240104, tab Exhibit G, page 1, cell D23.
We're there.
All right, so you're there? Thank you. Is it correct to state that the 22-month amortization recovered from 7-1-2023 through 12-31-2023 is a credit of $7,877,772?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So did the company use multiple prime rates in the calculation of the 22-month amortization recovered from during that period?
No, the company used the 8% that was set by the authority when that 22-month amortization was set,
Okay.
according to the schedule on the screen behind you.
Okay. So Chair Gillette, I'd like to request a late file exhibit, which provides
Your bad luck.
yeah, sorry about that. So, yeah, just discuss with my colleagues. We're gonna move on from that.
I can hear you. The mic is.
I just speak very loud. I'm a New Yorker. It's nothing new. So, yeah, we're just gonna go to exhibit H, SBC 2024 0104 tab
51 and C 51. Still worse. Great. Sorry about this. You blame it on me. So I have a question. Is the prime rate as of 2/15/2023 listed as 8.50% accurate?
Subject to check, it appears this should be labeled 2/15/24 instead of 2/15/23.
Okay. Thank you. All right, we're gonna move on to a different exhibit. This one's gonna be exhibit F, NVF
Mr. Apollonia, I think it's worse. You can put that down. Thank you.
We're gonna move on to DC 24-01-04 tab exhibit. Yeah.
We're still scrolling frantically.
Yeah.
I think we're good now.
Everybody's up there. So. Is the rate, prime rate? In this example?
Yes, in this example, we followed what we believe is the directive from PURA to use the prime rate in effect at the time when we calculated the carrying costs. So we used 8.5%.
Four times the charm.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
I'm not gonna hold it.
Oh, I'll hold it. I'll hold it. Yeah, I'm sorry about these tech problems. So it happens.
It's definitely your personal problem, not the buildings.
Yeah, you can blame it on me. All right, so. So just once again to clarify, why is the company using the 8.5% for the interest rate from January 31, 2021 through December 31, 2023 instead of historical prime rates?
When we ultimately recorded the adjusting entry to the NBF MCC in 2023 December, the prime rate at the time was 8.5. So the fact that the oversight occurred in December 2020, we started the carrying costs from that point forward. We weren't accruing carrying costs back in December or January 2021. We hadn't started the carrying costs. So at the point in time when we made the adjustments, we said it was in effect 8.5%. We used that all the way back to December 2020.
Okay. So let's go to Exhibit F, NBFMCC 2024, tab Exhibit F, page 3, cell D1. Yeah, it's the same spreadsheet, but just a different page. So page 3, cell D163.
Just for clarity, that's the Excel line, not the numbered line, correct?
Yeah.
Yep, we're there.
Okay. So is that 8.50% the prime rate again?
Right. Again, the prime rate that was in place in effect at 12/31/2023. So aside from the adjustment we just talked about, regardless of that adjustment, we would have used 8.5 for the calendar 2023 over under for the NBF MCC.
Okay, thank you. So we're gonna move to Exhibit D, GSC, and Exhibit E, BFMCC, 2024-01-04, tab Exhibit D, page 3, cell D39. Yep, all right. Once again, is the 8.50 considered a prime rate?
Yeah.
Okay. So just, let me confer with my colleagues one moment. All right, so that's all the questions for me today. Sorry about the tech problems once again. Blame it on that.
Apollonia, to clarify your earlier question regarding the number of projects that are remaining, the exact number is 11.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning. Can you hear me? I don't have quite as booming voice as Rory, but we'll see if it's personal to him or just a matter of the building. I do have a couple questions. These are kind of basic questions, just looking, I just want to go through some of the renewable programs and see where they're recovered within the actual filings. So if we can just go through those. So looking at Exhibit F of the MBFMCC, most of these I think are captured here, but I'm just trying to see if you guys can, if y'all can confirm that for me. So which of the line items there represent the incentive costs for the RRES program?
Mr. Talbot, like, are we looking at a page 3 or a particular page of the exhibit?
I'm not sure. Is it page 8, I think? Okay.
I'm sorry, could you repeat where we are, where you were pointing? Is it, please?
I think it's up on the screen. It's page 8 of the MBFMCC Exhibit F. That's from March 1st. I'm just trying to go through really basic, get through where stuff is
Sure.
captured.
I can start and then Ms. Westbrook can add to that. In the Exhibit F, which is the
Yes.
non-bypassable FMCC, if you look at page 2, there are broad categories of different incentive programs where we broke out into different categories as instructed by the authority. When we look at page 8, as instructed by the authority, we were asked to look at both revenues and expenses to break out that net number, which is provided on page 3. So if you look at page 3, you have a net number. If you look at page 8, you have a revenue and expense, which equals the net number, but just gives more information for the authority and examiners to look at the information. Your specific question was, where do we find incentive payments to projects?
Incentive costs for the
Incentive.
RRES.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna want to break that down by netting and by all, if you have that.
Okay. So I believe that this would be a question for Ms. Westbrook's, but the way the RRES information, it starts in line, Exhibit F, page 8, which is labeled CPE, which is customer produced energy. The RRES, which stands for Residential Renewable Energy Solutions, starts in line labeled 38. And there's multiple costs, revenue, and expenses which have a net for that program. We start with, so the incentive, so those would run through lines 39 to me. Through 99, 39 through 99, labeled on the exhibit.
And that's, do you have that broken down through the netting costs and the buy all, or what is that?
Those are categories that are broken down. Some of them are netting and some are buy all. Do you have a specific question on netting or buy all, or would you like me to point you to those exactly?
Yeah, that'd be great. If you
Sure.
could point them to me. I just want to go through these to figure out where everything is recovered, just so we.
Sure. And it's a reasonable, happy to do that. It's reasonable if you looked at prior year filings, we have more detail this year because we had more projects come in service. And so
Okay.
that's certainly why we have that detail. So the first category talks about residential tariff rec payments. That is for purchases of renewable energy credits through the company. But where we have the buy-all credit, the line 44 is UI residential buy-all customer credits. And then below that in line 49 is, 49 is UI netting customer credits, followed by a category regarding application fees that we take in for applicants to the program. And then next are metering fees. And next is administration and personnel costs associated with administering the program. And then the next, more personnel costs, and then Power Clerk support, which is a software support for managing the applications and the interconnections.
So the incentive cost would be considered all of those things, right? No?
So I guess it would be the determination of what do you mean by the word incentive? If perhaps there's a clarification there.
No, you can go ahead with what you.
Okay. So I would argue that the incentive, the way we view the term incentive, would be the payments to
Right.
customers
That's,
associated
I
with
think, what
enrollment
we
in the
meant too,
program.
but these are more administrative, somewhat, some of these are administrative, the
Yes.
program admin and personnel.
Ms. Westbrook, I think, can answer the question specifically to the payments to customers.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Prescott. I can clarify. So referring to the same page 8 that Ms. Prescott was speaking to, we've broken incentives out into a few different categories, so I can kind of walk you through that.
Okay.
If you look up to beginning at row, well, it is 44 in the bold. I guess it's row 44 in the bold. It says UI Res buy all customer credit. And then there's another section in bold below that, UI Res netting customer credit.
Okay.
Those two sections are representative of payments made as what we call direct payments, which are off-bill payments to what are called tariff payment beneficiaries. So those are the off-bill payments we would call incentives to those tariff payment beneficiaries. If you jump down to beginning at bold row 84, there's a category called UI Res netting customer on bill or CR on bill. And then below that, beginning in row 89, buy all on bill. And I believe there's another category which does not have any expenses recorded in it below that. Those on bill credits are on bill, I guess we would refer to them as the incentives provided on bill. For netting, that is for the netted production that we buy from customers. And for buy all, it's the compensation or incentive for the total amount of production that we purchase from those customers. So those are the 4 areas where you can capture the incentive costs.
Incentive payments to the
Incentive
customers.
payments to customers or tariff payment beneficiaries, which are not necessarily always customers.
Okay, thank you. And is there anywhere else in the RAM filing where those incentive costs would be reflected, or is this the only place?
Yes, I can point you to another page in this workbook where you can see these.
Okay.
If you refer to Exhibit F, page 3, beginning at row, so the residential renewable energy solutions section begins at row 95. And these, again, and we could have probably grouped them together to make a little bit more clarity, but row 97 and 98 are the direct payments for netting and buy all off bill, and rows 105 and 106 are the direct payment, are the on bill credits for netting and buy all.
Okay. But those are just the same numbers that were in the other sheet too.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's see. Is there a line item? Is there a line item in here or elsewhere in the RAM filing that shows cash outs of accumulated on-bill credits for account closures?
I do not believe we have that broken out as a separate line item. I don't believe we have seen any of those as of yet, but that is subject to check.
Okay. Okay. Are the adders broken out in here? So like the LMI or the distressed municipality?
They are broken out somewhat indirectly, so I can explain how they're identified in here. They are easily identified on the netting. So if you refer to, I should say easily, we don't label them, but if you refer to row, continuing on, also page 3.
Okay.
Row 98, which is netting customer credit. That's the off-bill direct payment. Those are always the adder payments. There is no rec incentive payment. It's a 0 rec incentive for UI. So the only payments we have going off-bill directly are those associated with adders on the netting. So the low income eligible adder and the distressed municipality adder.
Wait a second, did you say that those are always the adders? There's no other category in there?
In that row, yes, specifically, those are always, let me think about this. Adders. Yes, all of the netted production that we buy is always on bill. That's correct, yes. So those direct payments are the adders.
Okay.
Now, it's a bit different for the buy-all. In the buy-all, we do not break that out separately. It's you can't easily see the income eligible and distressed municipality is broken out because it's lumped together. So for example, the buy-all customer credit on bill could contain an adder on bill. So that adder may be on bill, or so it's a lump sum. It's a set PURA rate plus the adder rate all together when we purchase the production. And so when it's on bill, we don't have it broken out specifically here. It's just showing the on bill total. Similarly, if it's a buy-all direct payment, if there is an adder associated with it, it's a lump sum total. And it is the production, the energy from the system that we're buying plus any adders. And that is the off-bill payment that's represented in row 97. So they're kind of lumped into those values.
Okay. All right, thank you. Let's see. So are there any other costs for RES energy payments anywhere else in the RAM filing?
I believe so. No.
And the administrative costs that are broken out in here, like RES program admin and personnel, is that for both RES and NRES, or are they separate?
Maybe just have one moment, please. Thank you. Those rows represent all RES administration, not NRES.
Okay, so NRES is in here somewhere or?
It certainly is.
Oh, okay, I'm excited. Well, we're gonna get to NRES in just a second, so let me finish up with RRES here. Let's see. I'm having trouble with mine. So the RRES EEA Power Clerk support. And that's an RRES administrative cost?
Yes.
And that's, what is that for?
Sure. So Power Clerk is the application portal that we utilize to collect the interconnection and tariff RRES applications where installers submit through this portal. It was a newly set up, established system we launched, it must have been set up in 2023. And we hired an outside vendor to assist in the support and maintenance of that system. It happens to be the same system also that Eversource uses for their application portal as well. And the vendor is also common so that we can maintain consistency in the maintenance, in the updates, in the changes to the system. And there are regular changes that have to be made and regular maintenance and adjustments that are being made utilizing this vendor.
Okay, thank you. So just another question about, so the interconnection costs for RRES, where, or any other capital costs, are those recovered through the RAM?
We'll have to get back. We'll have to get back to you on that specific question.
Okay, thank you. So, NRES,
Yes.
so it's kind of the same questions. If you could just help me out by walking through here, where the NRES netting and buy all and all that, the same, what we started with.
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
One moment while I get to the page. Okay, so program costs for the NRES program can be best seen if you look at Exhibit F, page 8. Again, it's the same that I pointed you to earlier, the customer produced energy. The NRES program detail is provided below, I believe it's below RRES. It is. It starts at line 101 and it runs through to line 110.
Okay.
Specifically, when it comes to the costs of buy all or netting, in 2023, we did not have any in-service buy all or netting NRES projects where there were incentive payments made. And therefore, we're not seeking recovery of any costs associated with incentives of the NRES program in the 2023 RAM.
That's great. I mean, great that you're
Well,
not seeking recovery since they don't
One
exist.
can say, we are continuing to administer the program and work hard to get those projects in service, but they are not yet in service.
Yeah,
For
that's
at
great.
the time of this book.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. So there aren't any,
So the revenues that you will see are associated with application fees, basically processing applications that come through the program.
okay, all right, thanks. And again, the interconnection costs or capital costs associated with NRES, that's subject to the same.
Can I ask you to repeat that question?
Well, we're just trying to figure out if you are attempting to recover, since there weren't any NRES projects, I guess. So they're not going to have any interconnection costs or capital costs associated with the NRES in this filing.
I believe that's correct, but could I ask you to just restate the question about the
Yes, we're just wondering whether the interconnection costs or capital costs associated with RRES, are you trying to, is there any attempt to recover those through the RAM proceeding? That was the question I asked earlier.
Okay. Okay, I understand the question. I'm gonna
Yeah, yeah.
defer to my
They're working on it.
coworkers to just make sure on the programming. You have
Yeah,
a
they're gonna get a
response?
late file or something or read it.
We'll have to get back on that one.
Yeah, is it gonna, do you think you're gonna read in or late file? We maybe,
I'm sure we can find a discovery response to get a relatively quick supplement on that provides that answer.
Okay, thank you.
And if it doesn't exactly fit the question, we'll provide the answer in writing.
thanks so much. Okay, let's move on to to storage if we can. Can we figure out where the ESS costs are?
Yes.
We're just looking for where they are in the filing. Yeah, same thing, same type of stuff. Yeah, just a matter of the,
So in terms of the energy storage program, based on the choice of categories that we had for providing the information, you would find the energy storage under the miscellaneous category, which I believe is Exhibit F, page 9, miscellaneous and other mandates. The energy storage program, I believe, is best represented on that page starting on line starting on line 76 and running through to 84.
so the battery storage and smart grids.
Correct.
Okay, thanks. And the incentives, are those reflected there or how, for both the upfront incentives and the performance incentives?
I would have to ask Mr. Whalen to answer that.
Yes, they are.
Well, where are they reflected in these two line items here?
You're referring to the 267,589?
Sorry, 267. I'm referring to the 76 UI battery storage and UI battery storage smart grids, just trying to see where the incentives that were paid for performance and upfront incentives, where those would be reflected. Didn't understand your answer.
So that number, looking at line 90 on page 9 of Exhibit F, a total of 267,589, those would include the incentives paid.
Okay, thank you. So that's line 90, that's 0, right? Is that what's there?
Line 90, cell O. Yes, line 90, row O. $2022.
Okay. Okay, I think, versus going through all of these, we can just ask most of these through some sort of interrogatories if necessary, if that's just to expedite the matter. Instead of going through all of these pedantically.
We don't,
Or we're past the interrogatory deadline, yes.
we're past rolling discovery, at least for
That's okay.
phase 1. I'm happy for you to continue the questions now, if that's.
Okay, that's great. As long as everybody's having fun, that's the main thing we're looking for. I was waiting for my mic drop moment, but I won't have that, so don't have a mic
Can't drop
anymore.
the mics.
Yeah. So I think energy storage, that's all there. So as far as the different types of, grid edge incentives or payments for those types of things, the adders, where are those reflected in that same line?
Yes, those are part of the incentives, yes.
They're all just lumped together,
Correct.
so they're not broken out anywhere specifically?
No,
Okay. And the administrative cost for storage, where is that?
that's also in that total.
Okay. And again, as far as the interconnection or capital cost, I guess the same answer that would apply to the first RRES aspect of this, those would be deferred or just a regular reg asset or?
So I guess I would just ask, maybe I can add to some color to the response and see if that gets to where the question is lying. When you talk about interconnection costs, are you asking if we're seeking to recover the cost to install these distributed resources through the RAM?
Yeah.
So as I understand it, these projects are subject to their own subject interconnection, and those projects receive interconnection agreements, which the project developers will pay for.
Right.
And that cost is not recovered in the RAM.
It's not recovered in the RAM.
Correct.
Okay. For all the programs, right?
Yes, for interconnected assets are not included in the RAM. That is in base distribution.
Okay. So are there, other than this line, the one line where most of this ESS stuff is, are there any other costs associated with ESS in the RAM?
We have vendor fees that are included in that cost. So we have a DERMS vendor under contract that we pay fees to for program support.
Okay, and but that's included in this same
It
line?
is, correct.
So there's no other line item in the RAM where ESS costs?
Correct.
would be covered?
All the energy storage costs are presented in just in the sections that we mentioned. The details in page in the miscellaneous and other programs page.
Okay, thank you. As far as electric vehicle charging program, I think all the rebates and administrative costs, those are deferred as a reg asset and or capital asset. There's nothing in the RAM related to those costs, correct?
That is correct. That is not seeking recovery under the RAM.
Okay. And then there's the SCEF subscriber credit.
Correct.
And are there any other costs related to that are reflected?
Besides what is on the RAM?
Yeah, besides what is in that.
No.
Okay. Are SCEF administrative costs recovered in the RAM filing?
They are. There are two types of SCEF administrative costs. There are administrative costs associated with the procurement activities, or that what we would call the subscriber organization. That refers specifically to the RFP, or request for proposal activities that are conducted by the wholesale power organization, which reports to me. That organization is conducting the procurements, and then that administration costs is recovered under the RAM, as well as labor for the SCEF credit or the customer credits, which are separate activities, which is allocating credits for those SCEF projects that go into service associated with the docket as guided by the authority.
Okay. And where, I'm sorry, I missed, did you specify where in the filing that would be, where those would be recovered?
You did not miss it.
Okay.
The administrative costs for this SCEF subscriber credit would best be provided in Exhibit F, page 8. And I believe that I could, subject to check by Ms. Westbrook, I would say that I believe that is best demonstrated in rows 128, which is you labeled UI SCEF Program Administration.
Okay.
That would be for the SCEF subscriber credit. For the SCEF subscriber organization and the procurement activities, that is provided in a overall administrative cost line item, which is, one moment. Maybe the best place to point you to it, because I'm sure I can find it on one of the 20 pages of the RAM exhibit, would be rather to provide, direct you to the known and measurable filing, Exhibit F2, page 1 of 2. And if I can draw your attention to that, what I'm trying to get to is that we have 3 full-time equivalent positions that split their time, approximately 75% of their staff time, to administering the LREC ZREC program, the NRES, and the Shared Clean Energy Facility procurement activities. And so those staff time is divided by 75% to those 3 programs. And that staff time is collected through the non-bypassable FMCC charges as an administrative charge for those 3 programs.
You said LREC, ZREC, RRES, and SCEF?
No, LREC, ZREC, NRES.
NRES. NRES and SCEF. Okay. Okay, thanks. Okay. So for LREC and ZREC, are there still administrative costs that are being recovered for the legacy programs?
Yes, there are. Although the procurement activity is completed, those are 15-year contract terms for the program, and many projects are not yet in service. And so we have administrative activities associated with them before they go in service, as well as after they go in service. We have to maintain our activities associated with that throughout the whole term of the contract, which will run at least until 2039 or 2040.
So in the line item for Exhibit F, page 8, that show the LREC, ZREC costs.
Yes.
So are those the incentive payments for the program?
Those are the incentive payments, correct. That does not include the administrative costs.
Is there anything to reflect the energy or lost revenue costs?
No, specifically, Mr. Kulka can supplement my response, but the LREC ZREC specifically is a contract only for the purchase of the renewable energy credits. It is not reflective of the energy or the avoided or the net energy.
Okay. Right. Okay. I think that's all I have.
Okay, Consumer Counsel, do you think you have, I'm just trying to judge whether to take a lunch break or.
I think I have 10, 15 minutes, so we'll be fast.
Okay, and Attorney Anna Weege, do you know if Deep has any cross? Okay, and I think I only have 1 or 2 questions, so is the company okay continuing? Okay, Consumer Counsel, please.
Apologies for standing between you and lunch. Just have a couple broader questions. I'm not going to have you dig through spreadsheets. I think the first is just going back to the conversation you had with Ms. McDonald and Ms. Cohane regarding the SBC revenue requirement and the low income discount rate. So I was looking at the interrogatories that were referenced in those discussions, CAE 20 and CAE 21. CAE 20 is regarding the actual amounts of discounts applied to customers by a date certain. And CAE 21 is regarding an analysis of tier 1 and tier 2 enrollment. So in light of the way those are framed and the questions regarding the inclusion of the DSS data match, I just wanted to clarify, because to my understanding, the DSS data match, the numbers have been provided, but the match hasn't necessarily occurred, and I'm not sure if they would be considered enrolled or actual discounts. So it's a long way lead up to asking, are the anticipated DSS data match numbers reflected in your responses to either CIE 20 or 21?
No.
Okay. And was the late file requested by Ms. McDonald? I was understanding that, but as an adjustment to reflect the LIDR assumptions to account for those numbers of customers. Is that how you interpreted it as well? The supplement?
I
Is
have that as a supplement
Yes.
to CAE 20 to
Right.
adjust the SBC revenue requirement by adjusting the LIDR assumption for actual enrollments as of March 8th.
Actual enrollments. Okay.
Is that,
So
I'll just let Ms. Ross and Mr. Coca confer in case that's.
That's also how I have it written.
Well, so what we're going to supply is all customers that are enrolled in LIDR tier 1 and tier 2 as of Friday, March 8th.
okay, great. In that case, could I ask to supplement another layer, which is to ask for the revenue requirement based on applying the LIDR enrollment numbers based on the data sharing match?
The ones that haven't been loaded.
Right,
Okay.
great.
And that'll be a supplement to CAE 20.
I'm okay with that if the chair is.
We'll probably just do them together, but we can break it out however,
Break it out.
as long as you guys are comfortable with the request.
Yes, I can break it out.
Great, thank you for that clarification. And then I had some questions, there were some prior questions regarding the known and measurable filing. And I just wanted to clarify how the company's been integrating forecasts into the known and measurable requirement filing, if at all. So I guess with respect to this specific filing, to make the question more pointed.
Well, I can respond to that, Attorney Coleman. Our understanding is not specifically using a forecast, however, using the proxy year adjusted for known and measurable. And there's I guess a finger in the wind on whether it's known and measurable. We know, like, the LIDAR is known. The measurable part remains a challenge, I think, for anyone involved, because we don't know the end number of customers. So with respect to that program, that was our best estimate of what we thought was going to happen with the data we had at the time.
Right. And just more broadly, in terms of, I'm trying to figure out how analysis of relevant market conditions currently factors into your decision of whether to include something in a known and measurable filing. Is that something the company evaluates under the current known and measurable
Could you
guidance?
Could you give us an example of what, I mean, market conditions, for example, on the non-bypassable, we have the latest NYMEX outlook of generating prices, right? And that would feed into the non-bypassable charge.
Thank you. Yeah, I was thinking about the NBFMCC more particularly.
But any type of economic data with respect to demographic growth and the like, as we're directed not to use forecasts, we don't really take that into account.
And then, for example, in Mr. Kolka's February 16th testimony, there's a known and measurable adjustment of 27.7 million driven by increase in costs in clean power and grid mod initiatives. Does any of that include forecasting or analysis of market conditions?
Which exhibit was that specifically referring to?
The February 16th, it's the pre-filed testimony of Mr. Kolka.
But was it the SBC or was it the TAC or the
No,
non-opacity?
NBFMCC.
Oh, okay.
It said the NBFMCC revenue requirements included known and measurable adjustments of 27.7 million, primarily driven by expected increase in cost to implement clean power and grid modernization initiatives.
Thank you for the clarification. Yeah. Yeah, we pulled that directly from our known and measurable exhibits. And the only potential forecast would have been the NYMEX that I referenced, plus the incremental FTEs in Exhibit F2 that we've discussed. FTEs and programs in F2.
Great, thank you. And also referring generally to the February 16th testimony, Mr. Kolka summarized that the total revenue increase UI is proposing to take effect on May 1st would result in an estimated bill increase of about 12% or $30 for a residential rate R average customer. Has the company considered a request to phase in this rate across the 2 rate adjustment periods and the May 1st and June 1st to align with expected standard service rate decreases?
Not in our February 16th filing. There was interrogatories to the effect of what the rate would be if we waited till July 1st. So I'd stand on those estimates.
Does the company have a position of whether that's something that would benefit customers or that the authority should consider?
If we wait and the standard prices typically are lower on July 1st, not guaranteed that they're lower, but they typically are, then these would be implemented at a time when the generation service rate was going down.
Correct.
So to that effect, then customers would see a lower percentage increase than they would on May 1st and then have the rates drop on July 1st.
Are there downsides that
Carrying charge.
should be considered?
We'd be collecting less. There'd be 2 months of additional revenue we'd have to make up on the other end.
I would also supplement, I think we said this in our written responses is we're not yet through with our procurements for the second half of 2024. And given the unpredictable nature of markets, we didn't calculate that specifically with this filing because again, when we were, reading the instructions and the guidance from the authority as to making these filings, we certainly take the actuals for the prior year. We've adjusted for the known and measurable, and we're stopping at that point to be consistent with the January, the known and measurable filing, also the February filing, and trying not to commingle or make changes in the midst of the filing to make sure that our numbers are consistent. If the authority were to make such a decision, we can certainly make the modification then. But again, we're not yet through with our procurements and we are, there's no guarantee of what that rate will be.
Understood. Thanks. One other idea that has been floated that I'm wondering if the company has considered is the potential impact of shifting the Millstone and Seabrook PPA cost changes to align with the standard service rate changes in January and July. Is that something companies considered and has views on?
Good afternoon, Attorney Coleman. I don't know if we've specifically discussed that
potential internally. I mean, generally, when we think of pushing costs in the future, our general impression is that we're not in favor of these costs. These costs should be paid as they are incurred in our view. There are certain times when things are spread over a number of years, but that is generally in our view should be reserved for costs that will not replicate themselves in the future. We don't think the millstone costs are going to be drastically different going forward. At least that's what we think today. So we would not present the millstone costs as a general candidate for spreading out into the future.
Thanks, that's helpful. Putting aside deferrals or amortization, just thinking about our reconciling time periods, we adjust standard service rates in January and July, and we adjust the NBF MCC, which has, Millstone and Seabrook, which are sort of, they relate. What we're paying for Millstone, impacts what customers end up paying through the RAM adjustments. So, one idea has been to have those adjustments occur at the same time in January and July.
It wasn't too long ago when the non-bypassable would reconcile twice a year, and that would take some of these wide swings out of the equation. So it's probably worthy of further consideration. I'm not sure we have a position here today to share.
Fair enough. I think I will end there and let everyone eat lunch.
Thank you. Anything further from OCC?
No.
Okay, and confirming for the record, no questions from Deep. Correct. Thank you. Mr. Vice Chairman? You're all set. Okay, I just have a few questions, and let me just pick up where and I invite the OCC to stay there. You don't need to move. Unless you want to. Let me pick up on a question that the Consumer Counsel asked and Mr. Canavan, you just answered. So that response, as I understood it, was with respect to amortization, specifically that the company does not support amortization of the type of costs that would be incurred on a going forward basis. Is that an appropriate summary?
I would say generally correct. I mean, there's always probably exceptions that all parties could probably discuss and agree upon, but from a general principle standpoint, that's correct.
Okay, does that mean that the company also is opposed to securitization as a concept for?
I think securitization could be an important part of rate making in certain circumstances, but without a specific proposal in front of us, I'm not sure we can agree or disagree.
Can you opine on what the difference in your response is from amortization to securitization of millstone costs? Because I'm not sure I understand the distinction between the two as a tool for the millstone costs.
I understand the discussion about millstone is that we are going to continue to incur millstone costs, let's say, in the out years, and should we push those costs out further into the out years? And we think that we shouldn't for a number of reasons, whether it's intergenerational equity, carrying costs, cash flow issues for the company. I think those are concerns that come to mind when we talk about that. We're talking about securitization, whether it's millstone or other items. My understanding is that those costs are bonded by the state of Connecticut through special legislation and then sold. And there's a much more involved process by which those costs are spread out into the out years.
Okay, but there's no distinction in this example of millstone not being incurred on a going forward basis.
Well, I've always heard of securitization in storm costs. So if you use that example, I think that is not a repeating every year issue. I think the idea is a storm cost could be a one in any number of years. Again, this is somewhat hypothetical because I don't think we've done securitization in Connecticut in my lifetime.
All right, thank you. Just have a clarifying question on LIDAR. So in conversations this morning, I just have some confusion over the status of customers currently. So specifically, I'm going to start with a clarifying question. are customers identified by DSS opt-out sharing, have they been enrolled into LiDAR, or are those customers being held in abeyance, or however you want to describe it currently?
So the new file, which gets confusing, opt-in, opt-out, the new file from DSS that we just received in February, those customers have not been enrolled in LIDR as of yet. I can't say, there was 16,995 customers. Of those customers, 11,000 have not been loaded, because the difference were customers that were already pending, had applied through other means.
Okay.
It's kind of a yes and a no.
Thank you. So, said another way, so you're just specifying a February file from DSS. So that implies to me that there was an earlier file from DSS.
No, that was our first one with opt-in, with DSS telling us supplying them with all of our customers and them sending us a file telling us what customers would be on tier 1 or tier 2. In the January, that was us sending the customers that had opted in, I guess, with us, and those customers have been loaded.
Okay. So when you used, I think it was you, Ms. Rosso, earlier in exchange with our staff, you used the phrase full data sharing with DSS. Was that used to mean
The February.
opt-out? The February, which was opt-out data sharing.
Correct.
Okay. So back to your response just a few moments ago, the current status of financial hardship customers with UI is that any customer who was identified by the company through traditional methods, where I'm using traditional to mean that they've applied.
Or CAA has sent us a file.
Okay. And the refinement of that data from the opt-in data sharing with DSS, that realm of customers have been enrolled in tier 1 or tier 2 of LiDAR. But anyone that was identified in addition to that who has not also come in through another channel, so that realm of customers that you got in February through opt-out data sharing, those customers are being held in abeyance pending the authorities ruling on Eversource's request in RE11. Is that?
Some of them, because like I said, some of them were duplicates where the customers had already applied themselves. So of those in that file, there's 11,000 that are being held for that technical, whereas there's 16,995 in total.
Okay, so the 11,000, if any of those customers came in through a different channel pending ruling from the authority, what would the companies?
They would be enrolled.
They would be enrolled. Okay. Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you.
So as an example, when we present this new filing, that 11,000 could be less. It's not enrolled because, customers are constantly enrolling, CAs are constantly sending us files. So that number, I'm going to suspect, is going to be different.
Okay.
It'll be lower.
I keep missing the end. You're saying CAA, like the community
CAAs,
access
yes,
or action
all the different
agencies?
Agencies, yes.
Okay, thank you. I think that's everything I was unclear about. I do want to close the loop on some administrative items, but for now, I'll ask Attorney Vaughn if you need a moment to consider redirect.
Yeah, could we take like 5 minutes, Chairman Gillette? Sure. Thank you. You're pretty happy you get the sit this close in there, Mark.
I think I.
Hearing like everything twice is.
Thank you, Chairman Gillette. We do have, and appreciate the latitude if I took on 5 minutes. We have some limited redirect, and I just, as part of the redirect, I would like to swear in Miss Van Luling from the company, who can speak to one of the colloquies that we had earlier, and provide a little bit more clarity. Is that acceptable or not? I know she wasn't.
Can you be specific to which item?
Yes, Ms. Van Luling would be providing additional context around the discussion that you had with Mr. Canavan about securitization and amortization.
I mean, I don't have the legal authority to order securitization absent, absent legislation, so I'm not, I'm not sure that, that it would be particularly, relevant. I'm not, also not clear that we can put on a new witness on redirect. So, let me just offer those as an initial
Okay.
thoughts and,
That's okay. Thank you for those thoughts. I think that we'll proceed with our other redirect. If that's
Okay.
acceptable. Thank you.
all right, thank you.
Mr. Jessup. Do you recall questions earlier regarding the use of the prime rate in the company's filing?
Yes, I do.
And do you have any additional thoughts you'd like to add regarding the use of the prime rate and where that directive may have originated?
Yes, we're following the directive per the authority's final decision in order 220908 PDF page 45, where it specifically refers to these specific RAM components and apply at the prime rate established at the time of filing.
Thank you, Mr. Jessup. Mr. Patel, do you recall earlier questions from the Office of Consumer Counsel regarding the company's known and measurable filing and the company's response to OCC 14?
Yes.
Do you have any additional clarifying discussion you'd like to add regarding those numbers in those attachments?
Yes, I do. Just to clarify, the exhibit F2, page 1 of 1, was correct. There's no need to adjust. The amount of 640, 590 identified in OCC 014 is correctly reflected in that exhibit. If you isolate just the 4 incremental new FTEs and their percent involvement apportionment, coincidentally, their total was within 3,000 or 4,000 of the 640,000. That looks at all 11 FTEs related to the NRES and RES program. So it was more of a coincidence than anything else. It was not an apples to apples comparison when isolating those 4 new incrementals, because one existing FTE had 75% time allotted to it in 2023. That will go down to 50%. And I just wanted to clarify that OCC 14 is an accurate response, and Exhibit F2, the numbers are accurately reflected. There is no conflict there.
Thank you, Mr. Patel. That is all the redirect that the company has.
Okay. Thank you to the panel. So I was trying to keep track of my notes. I think Mr. Patel may have answered one of the outstanding questions, but let me work with you, Attorney Vaughn, on which items that we have outstanding for supplements.
I have first, we offered it as a read-in, but since there's no lunch break and it's still being worked, if Mr. Clemente could supplement CAE 8 with what will the TAC, LNS, and Schedule 12C expenses be as an overall increase or decrease expected for 2024? We can supplement that.
Perfect.
And then I have a 2-part supplement to CAE 20 about adjusting the SBC revenue requirement by adjusting the LIDR assumption for actual enrollments as of March 8th. And that came from Ms. McDonald. And then we were asked by Consumer Counsel Coleman to adjust the revenue requirement by applying LIDR numbers based on the data sharing match. Those were my notes.
Those are my 2. I had a third
And then,
On interconnection.
yes, and I was going to ask, I believe Ms. Prescott answered the question, and that was next on my notes was to confirm that we don't have to have any sort of supplements about that. I think the question was answered.
Thank you, Attorney Talbot Slagle. Can you respond, please?
I recall her response correctly.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so I think that matches my notes, and then we have the OCC filing a correspondence with their documentary evidence. Are there any other administrative items at this time?
No, not from the company.
None. Okay, thank you. Okay. I believe that brings us to the end of today's hearing. Bless you. We will be marching very promptly towards an interim decision. So Attorney Vaughn, I think the last matter is, did we settle on a due date for the supplements?
Oh, I believe Ms. McDonald asked if we could provide the CAE 20 supplement by Wednesday. Mr. Clemente, is that an acceptable date for yours? If Wednesday would work?
For both?
Yes.
That works for me. Well, then I appreciate the company's completion of those supplements. And if there's anything further, seeing none, we are adjourned. Thank you.